So I'm sure everyone has a full belly, right? So now we're going to get our brains full with some nutrition guidelines talking about multiple sclerosis and how to manage that. First of all, we're going to go over some facts about multiple sclerosis, being that multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease that affects the brain and the spinal cord. Nerve damage will occur from inflammation from the body's own immune system as it attacks the nervous system. We have a myelin sheath around our nerves, and when these are damaged, as you know, this causes symptoms to occur. The damage can prevent nerve signals to go, and they can also stop the nerve signals. And the multiple sclerosis symptoms can occur in many parts of the body. As you all know, we can experience some foggy thinking, possibly some memory loss, some changes in our vision, possibly some double vision, speech issues, possibly some swallowing issues, also muscle weakness, coordination issues, some bowel and bladder issues, and the universal symptom being fatigue. I think I heard someone mention that earlier in the program. We could talk about some of those issues too. So those symptoms can occur in many parts of the body, as we see. Multiple sclerosis does affect an estimated 400,000 people in the United States. Women are more affected than men, and typically the diagnosis occurs between the ages of 20 and 40. There is not a single test to diagnose multiple sclerosis, rather a battery of tests, which would include a medical history, a physical exam, neurological exam, and some other testing. And although at this time there's no specific cure for multiple sclerosis, there's several treatment modalities to help manage this disease. And we'll talk about that, starting out with medications. Medications can help slow the disease. Medications such as steroids can help the progression or the severity of attacks and may help control some symptoms such as muscle spasms, urinary problems, fatigue, and mood problems. Other treatment modalities would include physical therapy, speech therapy, and occupational therapy. These are great allied professionals that can help provide you with programs such as strengthening exercises, stretching exercises to keep us active and strong as possible. Also, these modalities will provide us with exercise programs and assistive devices to help daily living improve. Social workers and counseling services are available as well to help provide coping mechanisms and possible assistive programs when people are in need. And finally, the registered dietitian. We like to provide the sound nutrition advice to help promote a healthy and eating program to improve your quality of life as well. So that being said, let's talk about some of the things that are out there and that we're hearing. There's a lot of different diets out there, and you can get online, you can Google anything up and find just about any diet that supposedly will cure multiple sclerosis. These are some of the more common ones. So let's start out with the Swank diet. This diet was developed by a physician about 60 years ago. He's almost ahead of his time. His focus was a very low fat, specifically low saturated fat diet. The saturated fat could not exceed 15 grams per day. And with the range of the total fat, that was between 20 and 50 grams of fat per day. So we wanted everything very low fat. Red meat was not allowed for the first year whatsoever. No way, no how, no red meat. Any type of dairy product was supposed to be very low fat, 1% milk fat or less. And after the first year, it was acceptable to have red meat once a week in a 3-ounce portion. And as we all know, we've heard it, 3 ounces is about the size of a deck of cards, or the amount that'll fit in the palm of a woman's hand. So once a week, the red meat was acceptable, and that's it. Now, the positive aspect of this type of plan was that it was probably the first time that we noticed a positive step toward improving our health. The drawback to this plan was that the research is somewhat controversial. We don't really have enough studies. And at the time that this plan was provided and promoted, there wasn't any actual measurable way to predict the outcome or the progression of the disease. So the bottom line with this plan is we, again, just don't have enough information to recommend this as the diet to manage multiple sclerosis. Moving on to the second, Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers is a nutritionally sound weight loss program. It's based on a point system. It can include all the food groups. You set a goal and you can achieve that goal. The goals are very achievable. It's overall a very healthy and balanced eating plan. The drawbacks, the plan can be manipulated. I know I've had patients come in to see me that have 20 points and they're eating 20 points of Snickers bars. So you can manipulate the plan somewhat. Not always the best option to do that. And counting becomes monotonous. After a while, it's kind of like, I'm so tired of looking at this label and seeing these points and adding up these points. What else can we do? So a Weight Watchers plan for weight maintenance or weight loss is recommended. It's sound, it's nutritious and healthy. However, again, the evidence that it manages multiple sclerosis or is a cure or the diet for multiple sclerosis is just not available. The next plan that we look at is the South Beach plan. This is known as the Food Lover's Diet, otherwise known as the Low Carbohydrate Modified Diet. This plan was developed in 2003 by a physician named Arthur Agustin, and his whole idea was to change the balance of the food that we eat to promote weight loss and also to promote a healthy lifestyle. This plan is composed of 3 different phases. Phase 1 basically is where we take out the carbohydrates and we are left with our proteins, try to be lean proteins, left with vegetables, nuts, and seeds. That phase lasts for about 2 weeks. That's when we see the weight loss coming, because when we take out carbs from our diet, we're going to lose weight. Carbohydrates hold water, not such a bad thing, but when we take out carbs, we take out water, what do we see? We see weight loss. So then after the 2-week period of losing our weight, we start to reincorporate our grains, we start to reincorporate our fruits. And that is known as the maintenance phase. If we can maintain the weight loss at that phase, then we slide right on into long-term, and here's our plan. Sometimes that's pretty difficult to do, and we'll notice that the weight starts coming on. So then we have to flop back over into phase 1 and start pulling out those carbs again. So that's why it's known as a phase diet. You'll stay in the 2-week phase, and then you'll eventually transition to phase 2 and phase 3, but you can continually go back and start over. So the good thing about this plan is that the foods are desirable. You pick and choose your lean proteins, you pick and choose your nuts and seeds and your healthy vegetables. But the drawback is it could put your body in a state of ketosis, which is a result from restricting carbohydrates. Our bodies are meant to burn carbs. And when we eliminate or we go through the storage of carbohydrates, the leftover is the storage form of fat. And when we use that storage form, we develop ketones. When we develop ketones, we're not as hungry, but also it kind of gives us a little foggy feeling. It also can be a strain on the kidneys, and some thought that it could be causing some issues with a risk of osteoporosis and a risk of cardiovascular problems. So again, there's no definitive answer that the South Beach diet is the answer for management. And what about this gluten-free plan? Again, I probably have 3 or 4 patients a week that come in for anything under the sun, and they're just taking the gluten out of their diet. The whole idea here is to remove gluten specifically found in items like your wheat, your barley, your rye, those items out of the diet. And the thinking is that will help alleviate the symptoms of multiple sclerosis. It will help the progression of, prevent the progression of multiple sclerosis and the severity of attacks. The bottom line, it's just really not been proven. We don't have the evidence to state that. It does encourage you, the positive aspect of this, to take a good hearty look at your eating habits, see what you're doing, and kind of make some changes. But again, as far as recommending a gluten-free diet for the management of multiple sclerosis, we don't have enough evidence. Also, gluten-free doesn't always mean low fat. I don't know if anyone has followed that, but sometimes when you're looking at gluten-free items, sometimes we're adding a little bit more fat. We could be adding a little bit more calories from sugar or different ingredients as well. So it doesn't always necessarily mean this plan is lower in fat or lower in calories. And again, I don't know if you've tried gluten-free, but sometimes you have to really be careful because things will spoil pretty quickly. And we always recommend to the people that need the gluten-free diet, if you can with your bread, divvy it up in slices of 2 or 3 and freeze it, and then pull that bread out, because it doesn't stay fresh very long. And you'll notice it's a lot denser product. So but again, not recommended as the answer for management with multiple sclerosis for the diet. Vegetarian diet, again, limited research. I can continue to keep saying this. Limited research is available on the effects of the vegetarian diets and the management of multiple sclerosis. But that being said, the positive aspect of following a vegetarian diet, vegetables have a lot of fiber. And what comes with a lot of fiber is regularity. It also can help with cholesterol levels. Addition of fruits and vegetables will help boost the immune system, and it does help fight infections. So a vegetarian diet can be a very healthy, can be a very balanced plan if done correctly, and if you make sure that you get the adequate amounts of protein from your non-animal sources. It's a very healthy program, but again, it is not the cure diet for multiple sclerosis. Which leads us to the paleo diet, the hunter-gatherer, the caveman approach. This and the gluten-free diets are probably the two that we see the most of people wanting to jump on the bandwagon with. And I can say I have a lot of people that come in and say they're following the paleo diet, and I've probably not had one person that's really truly following the paleo diet. It's very hard to follow. Basically, it's a meat, root, veggie, fruit plan. We're taking out the food groups dairy, we're taking out the food groups from your grains. And with that leaves us no beans, of course no dairy, no grains, no legumes, no potatoes, no sugar, no processed foods, which those two are okay to kind of pull away from. This diet does tend to have a lot of fiber. It does have some antioxidants because you're getting your fruits and your vegetables, and it tends to be low sodium. But it's very, very high protein, and again, as we stated earlier, it could set your body up for ketosis, which is not necessarily something that we want to do. It could be high in fat, and it's very difficult and very strict. It's very hard to follow. So again, not specifically the answer. So we have the Swank diet, we have Weight Watchers, we have South Beach, we have gluten-free, we have paleo and vegetarian. None of these of the ones we talked about are the answer. So what is one to do? What are we supposed to do then with our diets? Well, the answer, basically, any particular diet has not been proven, any specific diet. Some evidence does go to show us that a diet high in saturated fat, high in total fat, could possibly cause some issues with multiple sclerosis. Intake of vitamin D may be associated with a lower incidence of multiple sclerosis, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But the role of your vitamins, your minerals, your supplements, trace elements, it's just unclear at this time. We just don't have the concrete evidence to put out there to say this is what will cure or be the diet for multiple sclerosis. It's just not available. We need more research. So then we say, well, okay, well now we're real stuck. What in the world do we do? The answer is to start from scratch. Start from where you as an individual are with your eating habits. And what we like to recommend is keeping a food diary. We give these out all the time in our office. And when you keep a food diary, what you simply do is you write down your food items, you write down your approximate portion sizes. And this way you can really evaluate what you're eating. Are you skipping breakfast? Do you go through drive-through? Is your intake high in fat? Is it high in sodium? Do you pass by the candy bowl and have 5 or 6 M&Ms every time you pass? Are you a Hershey Kiss addict? That will definitely be, you'll be able to tell that, and you can go back through and make some changes. So it's starting with your own individual eating habits. The other important aspect that you can do is monitor your portion sizes. I'm sure everyone's aware by now, I think we've ditched the food guide pyramid about 3 years ago, and instead we are substituting with the MyPlate method, and that is this plate right here. And we love this plate because what we recommend as dietitians is to take about a 9-inch plate and draw a line down the middle, and a quarter of the plate should be full of your protein, specifically your lean protein. So we're talking chicken, lean beef, lean pork, fish. A portion of that, a quarter of that. Then we take a quarter of our plate and we fill it with our grains, and that would preferably be our whole grains. Then the rest of your plate, you just fill it up with your fruits and vegetables. And if we eat in this manner for lunch, for dinner, little bit less for breakfast because we're not necessarily always going to have our vegetables at breakfast and so forth. But if we eat in this manner and follow these portions, typically we're going to have a low-fat, high-fiber meal plan. And this is what is recommended today. It's a very nice tool to use. So we do suggest using the plate method. Also, what we recommend is including 3 meals a day. Our bodies need fuel, and we need fuel about every 5 hours, a good hearty source of fuel. That meaning breakfast, 5 hours later lunch, and about 5 hours later a nice hearty dinner, okay? In between our meals, we like to have a little bit of fuel from our snacks. And if we can get that with a source of lean protein and a complex carbohydrate, then we're in business. So we've got a nice blend. But if we start with breakfast and we look here, I don't know if everybody can see this okay, but if we're on the go, just in a big hurry, nothing wrong with having a glass of milk, banana on the side, dip your banana in some peanut butter, you've got some protein, a lot of potassium here, calcium and vitamin D. You're ready to go. You have a little bit more time at home. Perhaps you can have an egg. We'll do some whole grain bread on the side with that, a glass of milk again, and some fruit. So again, we've got a little bit of nutrition from all of our food groups. It's nice and balanced, it's portioned, and it's healthy, and it gives you a nice, nutritious bang. As we move on to lunch, often we want to go with something that's a lean protein. So perhaps lean chicken breast. Okay, you can do this instead of your typical cheeseburger. Okay, now if you notice my patty here is 3 ounces. A lot of times we're not choosing the 3-ounce patty, we want the 4-ounce patty or bigger. So we've got this big old patty, piece of cheese, we've got a Mambo cheeseburger. Lots of fat in here, it's not going to make us feel good. So a better choice would be, again, grilled lean chicken breast. You can still do your bun. If you want to do a whole grain bun, that's just a little bit more nutritious for you. Complement this with some fruit, a side salad. Even if you wanted some whole grain crackers or some pretzels, this would be a nice balance for lunch. Then you can complement this if you wanted another glass of milk, you could, or perhaps some water. That would be a nice beverage too. Decaf tea, that would be also great. Moving on to dinner, kind of the same if we're using our plate method. We've got our patty of our, here's some salmon, nice healthy fatty fish. It's going to give us our omega-3s, lots of healthy properties there. Then we'll complement that with a whole grain, perhaps some rice, whole grain rice, brown rice, wild rice. This will be good. Also quinoa, I don't know if anyone's cooking with quinoa. That's a real good grain at this point. It's got a lot of fiber in it. Quinoa also has a lot of protein. You'll find it in the rice aisle. It's spelled with a Q. It's Q-U-I-N-O-A, but it's pronounced like quinoa. You can cook this up and eat it like oatmeal in the morning. You can throw it in the refrigerator, bring it out at lunch and have it cold. You can heat it up and for dinner as a warm side dish similar to your rice. You'll also want to complement your dinner meal with a good hearty portion of your vegetables. And then, of course, fruit. We kind of forget about fruit as we become adults for dinner time. We always feed it to our kids or grandkids as they're growing up with each meal, and as adults that seems to get pushed by the wayside. But your fruits have a lot of valuable antioxidants. They're high in vitamins A and C, and they're a nice healthy choice to round out your meal. They're also kind of sweet, so it helps decrease that sweet tooth, whereas you might be going after the brownie or the cake, or the brownie cake and ice cream. So we want to be careful with that. And we'll get to some of these portions in a little bit. Between meals, it's always a good idea, again, to have some lean protein, so perhaps a cheese stick and some fruit. Or you could definitely do peanut butter and some fruit. This will keep you lasting between your meals, and again, it's healthy and nutritious. Also remembering nuts. You know, if we like almonds, pecans, walnuts, these are all very healthy properties inside these to keep us nice and healthy, keep us full between our meals. So just some good options there as far as eating and so forth. We do want to try to stay low fat, and that would be keeping our fat about 30% of the calories and no more. So that's about 5 teaspoons, 6 teaspoons of added fat per day. Also, you want to try to keep your fiber no more than 25 to 35 grams a day. And that's where the food diary comes in handy. If you're tracking your food, you can also track your fiber. And what I recommend to my patients is to bump your fiber up about 3 grams every 7 to 10 days. And when you're doing that, you also want to make sure that you have enough fluid on board. It's fiber, fluid, and exercise. Because otherwise you might just feel like you've got a big old rock in your stomach and it's just not going anywhere. It's not going to feel good. So again, you want the fiber, the fluid, and the exercise. It's good for regularity, and it's also good for cholesterol levels. So just an overall well-balanced eating pattern. Okay, in addition to having a healthy eating pattern, we need to stock our kitchen to make sure that it's healthy as well. You can take advantage of canned foods. Those times when you're not feeling well, when your energy level is very low, you just don't have a whole lot of energy. Nothing wrong with opening a can of fruit, can of vegetables. You can buy the low sodium, you can buy the sodium free, the reduced sodium, and you can still rinse those off. It's much better than going through a drive-through hamburger and french fries. So keeping canned items on hand is very helpful. Also, frozen vegetables. Vegetables are frozen right after harvest, so they've got that real strong, healthy nutrition already in them. And then we freeze them up, you're still retaining the nutrition. So keeping frozen vegetables on hand is very helpful as well. Plain rice. We always kind of go, ooh, rice, it's white, we can't have it. If you prefer the white rice, it's still better than your french fries. It's still better than dining out. But even better yet, if you wanted the brown rice, you wanted the wild rice, you wanted to go with either couscous or the quinoa, that's going to give you a nice nutritious punch. And you can use that as a staple. When you're feeling good, when you've got that energy, you want to cook up a lot of your plain rice or your brown rice, whatever, put it in the fridge. It'll last 3 to 4 days. You can pull it out, you can add your vegetables to it, you could add your lean meat to it, and you can make several different types of meals, and it's going to extend through your week. So you'll have nice nutritious meals, and you won't have to worry for the days you don't feel that good or the energy level is down. Seasonal fruits and vegetables, those farmers markets are just popping up everywhere. When fruits and vegetables are in season, they tend to be a little bit cheaper, so you can stock up on those. I have a lot of patients that on their good days, they'll stock up on their fruits and vegetables, they'll can them. And so through the winter time that they're still eating their fresh green beans and they're still getting, their tomatoes and some of their fruits and so forth. Lots of peaches, canned peaches. So that is also an option. Also for the times that you're not feeling well, take advantage of the fruits and vegetables that are pre-cut. Opening up a bag and putting it on your plate, nothing wrong with it. Again, much better than relying on fast food. Much more nutritious, healthier, lower in fat, lower in sodium, and more portion controlled. Because typically when we go through drive-through, we're not going to ask for the little burger and the small fry. It's going to be bigger because they tend to make it cheaper for you. The dollar menu is, what we're typically ordering from. Lots of fried food, lots of fat. Be careful with that. The other thing, don't forget about peanut butter. Peanut butter is a great source. Again, it's got the protein, it's got healthy fat. You can have peanut butter at any meal and snack. In the morning time, you could put it in oatmeal. I don't know if anyone's ever tried that. It's a nice boost of protein, is to put your protein in your oatmeal in the wintertime. You can put it on a bagel, you could put it on toast. You could even put it in your smoothie. You make a smoothie with banana, throw some peanut butter in there. You've got a little bit of protein punch, so it's good. Also at lunchtime, good old peanut butter and jelly on a whole grain bread. Nothing wrong with that. In between your meals, like I stated earlier, peanut butter and fruit, very good choice. You do peanut butter on graham crackers. I don't know if anyone's ever tried that. It's very good too. It's nice and refreshing. Or you could use it on whole grain crackers or rice cakes. These are easy, they're convenient, and again, they have more nutrition than going out and relying on the convenience prepackaged things at the fast food restaurants. So to stock our kitchen with to be multiple sclerosis friendly is a good idea. Also, meal preparation. Timing is everything. With multiple sclerosis being an unpredictable disease, make time and take advantage of those times that you feel your best. That's when you can batch cook. You can make a lot of chicken breasts. You can grill those great big family packs of chicken breasts, and you can freeze them in individual packages or packs of 2 or 3. You can do the same with pork chops. You can do the same with hamburger patties, getting the extra lean ground beef. Just grill, batch cook. Planning ahead. plan a weekly grocery list. And when you're feeling your best, that's when you can go to the grocery store. When you have that energy, take time at the grocery store to peruse the aisles, choose your leaner meats, choose your more colorful fruits and vegetables and your whole grain products. And also delegate. Don't forget about members of your family. They can be very useful, from everything from planning your meals to cleaning up and even the food prep. Another option is to sit down while you're prepping. You know, pull up a stool to the counter, sit at the kitchen table while you're chopping your foods and so forth. You don't have to stand to exert more energy. It also helps prevent possible spills, possible accidents if you're sitting and just working at the table or the counter. So take advantage of those items. Also, making sure your kitchen tools and your tips are also handy. Remember, organization, adjustment equals efficiency. If you have a low energy level, you can purchase, again, the items that are pre-cut, pre-bagged, just opening those. Take advantage of your gadgets, you know, a food processor, a blender, even a crock pot. You know, those items are all very time and energy saving appliances. What about temperature? Temperature, if your body temperature gets a little bit high, sometimes that'll bring on some MS symptoms. So it is recommended that we keep our body temperature low. Probably don't want to bake in the heat of the day. You probably want to take advantage of your microwave more often. And keep a fan in the kitchen. Keep that air circulating so you're feeling good and you have that nice energy level. Go electric. Use your electric can opener. You know, the hand ones and the crank items you want to kind of steer away from, because then you're just exerting energy, whereas you could save that energy for something else later. Also, accessibility. Keep different items like your measuring spoons and your cups handy. Also, duplicate. You know, you can have 2 different sets of measuring cups. These are easy. Just use them up, then use some more so you don't have to wash them as you go. You just pop them in the dishwasher and you're set. The same with your measuring spoons. You know, keep several different sets available. They don't take up much space at all. And again, you'll measure, pop them in the dishwasher. Less cleanup for you as you go. And then finally, declutter. Kind of get rid of your old utensils and make way for the new things that will provide you with conserving energy. There are some really neat kitchen gadgets and tools out there. The OXO brand is a brand that's specifically designed for people that have arthritis and people that have multiple sclerosis. It helps decrease the pressure and the strain when you're using tools in the kitchen. If you'll notice the gripper on the bottom of the mixing bowls, that bowl isn't going to slide all over your countertop. You're not going to have to hold on to it as tightly. So it's nice and it's gripping the counter as you're using that bowl. Also, Michael Graves brand, you can find that at Target, and the Minnow brand. These also have nice gripper handles for a variety of your different utensils. And this is also where the occupational therapist comes into handy, because they can help you utilize these tools more efficiently. And you'll notice if you see the cheese slicer and the paring knife, those items are very ergonomically designed so that you can hold those in your hand. And again, occupational therapy is very helpful to provide you with assistance with those. Even the tongs have a nice gripper on those. The spatula, the same, and you'll notice your pizza cutter and your scooper as well is nice, and it fits in your hand, again, creating less pressure, less force as you're utilizing them. Another item that's very helpful is the kitchen gadget called the long arm. You don't have to be a short person to use this, but it does help when you're reaching up high or even reaching low. Sometimes it's just too hard to bend down to get something and then bring it back up. So utilize that long arm. Very helpful tools. But if you don't want to invest in your money in those tools, there's a couple things you can do at home. You can adapt your own utensils to be more user-friendly. You can take a simple glass and wrap it in rubber bands, and you'll notice that you'll hold on to it tighter. It's not going to slip quite easily through your hands. That's a nice item to do. Also, believe it or not, you can put sugar in your salt shaker. Okay, so you put it in here, it doesn't weigh as much. You know how heavy a sugar bowl is, and if you're carrying it to the table, I mean, we could possibly spill it, break it. You just put your sugar in here, keep the lid not so tight, and you can manage how much sugar you're using. That will also help with weight. So a very nice option to change and put your sugar in the salt container. What about a napkin? How many times do we get our napkin out and we're going to sit down to dinner and we put it on our lap and it just kind of floats away? Well, then that becomes cumbersome. Then we have to get up, we have to find the napkin, put it back on our lap, and the process continues. Why not use a beautiful little tea towel or a dish towel? The weight is heavier, it's not going to go flying across the room, it's going to cover a lot more surface area, and if we do have a spill, it's got a lot of absorbency, so you don't have to worry about that. And it looks kind of pretty, it makes eating fun. So that's something also to think about. Also, simple things that we've probably done all our life, we want to continue, is lining our pans with foil. Easy cleanup, roll up that foil, throw it in the recycle bin, clean your pots and pans much more easier. And then the other thing that's very helpful is instead of purchasing a single handled pot, what we'd probably want to do is get the double handled one. When you're carrying this, the weight is much more evenly distributed. It's easier for you instead of carrying something like this where you could possibly teeter out and then have an accident and spill. So the double-handled pots and pans tend to be a little bit easier to handle. This slide shows us the top kitchen utensils that are rated to decrease prep time by 50% in the kitchen. And I thought it was very interesting. We all like to use our microwave, and that's fine to set a timer, but how many times do we set it and then we're looking at it, we can't see the numbers. With this large dial, a lot of times there's a magnet on the back or a suction cup, and you can stick it on your fridge, or you can magnetize it to an appliance, and you can see the big bold numbers and you can hear the clicking. So it's a very nice way to set a timer. Also, the other gadgets in kitchen appliances, from your food processors, your blenders, your crock pots, the long-handled ladles and spoons and so forth. If you'll notice the second slide over on the middle row, the underneath of that spoon has got the gripper on it. So again, that's where occupational therapy comes into hand, where they can help you with that. The kitchen knives, the easy grip knives, and the spatulas, and of course the electric can opener. The other thing, backing up a little bit, you can also put rubber bands on your utensils if you didn't want to invest in the other ones. Again, this creates a nice grip, so this isn't slipping through your hands. Just a couple options there. Also, just to kind of wrap up these guidelines, delegate. Don't be afraid to use your family members. People have a tendency to want to help one another, and it's helpful when you do get some help, because that's going to preserve your energy for times for later use. Also, making leftovers, as a review, cook big when you feel good. Throw it in the freezer, throw it in the refrigerator, pull it out. Also, using recyclable items when you entertain. These tend to have a lighter weight. They're easier to clean up. And then another tip would be to fill your pots at the stove versus the sink. You don't want to fill your pot up with water and then just have to bring it over to the stove. You could use a smaller cup and then fill your pots at the stove. It's just a little bit more helpful. So we've got all these ideas, we've got all the tools. Now we have to figure out what to make. And we start out with lean protein. We do want to choose lean poultry, like the white meat from the chicken, your turkey. You want to choose lean protein, like your beef and your pork. If you're choosing beef, you want to choose a loin cut or a round cut. And if you're choosing pork, you want to have like a loin chop or a pork tenderloin cut. Don't forget about beans. Beans have a ton of fiber in them. They also have a lot of protein, and they're a very good base for your meal. You can certainly use beans as a good protein source. Also, fish. Cooking, you can use salmon, you can use tilapia, orange roughy, you can use any of these items of fish. There's a lot of protein available in those. And keeping your portions appropriate. Again, typically a 3-ounce portion of protein is what we're looking for. Men, we do go a little bit bigger. We do say about a 4-ounce portion. And I like to use our hands as a guide. If we're a woman and we look at the palm of our hand, that's how big our protein portion should be. For men, the size of the palm of your hand is about how big your protein portion should be. All right. And then if you have fish about the size of a checkbook, if it's real lean, real thin, you can go that's about a 3 to 4 ounce portion. Whereas you look at salmon, a salmon patty would be more like this because it's a lot thicker. So you have some nice items to judge there. Also, you want to include your whole grains with your meals. Whole grains provide you with a lot of fiber. They're very nutritious, they get you full, and they're a good basis to add to your protein. Then you complement that with your colorful fruits and vegetables. I'm sure you're all aware the deeper, darker colors of your fruits and vegetables provide you with the most nutrition. Okay, so we're talking like romaine lettuce versus iceberg lettuce. You can still throw iceberg in as a nice little crunch, but don't expect it to offer you a whole lot of nutrition. It just kind of excites the tongue because it's got a different texture. So it does have its place. And remember your dairy. This is another option that as we get older, we tend to kind of push off to the side. But calcium is very important, as we all know, strong bones and teeth, and vitamin D helps to absorb your calcium. So it is necessary, just as fat is necessary. We don't want to go fat-free, we just want to use our fat in a sparingly basis. Preferably the unsaturated fats, your monounsaturated fats, your polys, and steering a little bit away from the saturated fats, those being the fats that are hard at room temperature. So you want to use those sparingly. And the same goes for dining out. When you're dining out and you look at the menu, you'll want to steer with choices that are grilled, baked, broiled. You want to stay away from items that promote hidden calories, such as those that are fried, items that are creamed, items that have gravies that say supersize or large. Those are the things to stay away from. And saying woe to the dough. Watch that bread basket. If you get a bread basket at the table, one slice of bread, fine. 2, 3, 4, then you're having pre-dinner and then your dinner, so you've had double the calories. We don't want to get into that habit. So if we can just go easy on the bread, that'll help as well. Also, to cut your meal in half. When you're presented with your meal, perhaps just ask the waiter to take half a portion, take it back to the kitchen, and then when you're ready to go home, you can have it. It's already packaged and it's nice and pretty. We haven't kind of cut it apart and so forth. And then you'll have a nice balanced meal for later on in the week. Also, decrease your intake of sugar. If you have to have that dessert, maybe split it with someone that you're dining out with, or really watch your portion. If you are having brownies per se, this is a normal size serving for a brownie. It's a flat Post-it, and then if you get a piece of cake, that would be basically a 3-dimensional Post-it. It's a nice little rule of thumb to use. If you're wanting ice cream, limit to 1 scoop. It'll fit in about the palm of your hand as your hand is cupped. So those are just some items, or again, splitting a dessert with someone that you're going to dinner with. Also, watching out for your alcohol intake. Sometimes alcohol can trigger a symptom of multiple sclerosis, and we do recommend when you're dining out to limit that. If you can see this, there's a little line right here. This would be about the size of a glass of wine, about 4, maybe 5 ounces. If we're having beer, we want to keep it no more than a 12-ounce can as 1 serving. So we just want to be aware of the alcohol intake. We don't need those extra calories as well because that can promote weight gain. And when we have weight gain, it's harder to get around and it just kind of precipitates a whole lot of symptoms of fatigue and so forth. So it's a nice balance is what we're looking for. So when we put it all together, the bottom line is we do want to follow a low-fat, high-fiber, portion-controlled plan. It's basically healthy eating. And we cannot ever underestimate the role of good nutrition in our lifestyle. It is the cornerstone of everything, basically. You also want to keep informed of new information. Be on the lookout. You'll probably see more, and you're probably aware of the relationship with vitamin D and multiple sclerosis. Noting that if our vitamin D levels are lower, it could put us at a greater risk of developing multiple sclerosis. Now, and management of it. So the best source of vitamin D is from where? The sun. It's from the sun. But what do we do when we go out in the sun? Cover up. So recommendations are for about 15 minutes, 2, 3, sometimes 4 days a week out in the sun, and then go ahead with your sunscreen. Vitamin D can be found in food. It's a little bit harder to get. It is found in your dairy, your milk, because it's fortified. You can find vitamin D in salmon. You can also find it in sardines. You can find it in tuna, some fortified grains, and you can find it in some mushrooms. But again, the best source is from the sun. If you find that you are vitamin D deficient, the best thing to do would be to talk to your physician to get on a vitamin D supplement regime, and they can certainly work that out with you. The other up-and-coming kind of information is the use of turmeric. Is anyone familiar with that? This is a plant, it's a spice, and it's made from, it comes from a plant. It's like yellowish in color. It's got a real warm, sort of bitter taste. The root of turmeric has been used in medicine. It's also been used in the treatment of heartburn, some stomach problems, some diarrhea. The property in the turmeric is called curcumin, and that's an anti-inflammatory property. At this point, we don't recommend a certain dose of this property. We just recommend sprinkling this on your food, and you can put it on your grilled items, you can put it on your vegetables, stews, soups, sauces, and you can just sprinkle it on through the day with your different food items. Again, we're not recommending a certain amount in a pure form at this time. We need to know more about that. The other important idea is to be aware of how you're feeling. If you're feeling tired, maybe, again, pull out your food diary and see, were you more active? Were you overactive? Did you have a little bit too much fat in your diet or too much sodium kind of to make you not feel so well? Have you put on some weight? This could cause you to be a little bit more tired, having trouble getting around. So you might want to pull back on your calories, your fat. Make sure that you have enough fluid. Make sure you have enough fiber so you don't have issues with constipation, so you don't have so many issues with bladder control and so forth. Also, it's very important to use healthy recipes from reputable sources. The American Heart Association puts out a great cookbook. The American Diabetes Association does as well, and the Cooking Light magazine. And if you are savvy with a computer, they have a website that you can receive menus from as well. And then just one quick thing about the food diary. If you're techie and you have a smartphone and you'd rather download some apps and keep track of your intake in your phone, I have a lot of patients that like the MyFitnessPal app, the Lose It app, the Livestrong app, any of these, just some format to keep track of what you're eating so you can modify it as needed. Okay, so the bottom line is planning ahead, making sure that you have enough energy to prepare the meals, the healthy meals, going a little bit lower in fat, making sure you have enough fiber, being aware that there is no specific multiple sclerosis diet. It is a combination of healthy eating. Learn new facts, ask questions, and that will help manage multiple sclerosis for you.
What is the Atkins diet?
Atkins diet is also a high protein, low carbohydrate diet. It's similar to the South Beach diet, but it's a little bit more strict. So again, high protein, low carbohydrate. And if you remember, our bodies are designed to burn the carbohydrates first and foremost, so we would probably steer away from that type of plan.
Next question, what about salt on our food? How much salt can we have on our food a day?
That's a good question. Typically, we receive more sodium than what we want when we're eating foods that are processed or convenience or we're dining out. It's not so much what we add to the table, but that being said, around 2,000 milligrams of sodium a day tends to be a nice balance.
Okay, thank you. Do certain foods trigger the immune system in a negative way for MS patients? Should they be avoided?
That's a good question. Again, we need more research with that. Basically, when someone is following a specific diet, it's based on their personal account. So what that means is if someone finds certain food items that they're avoiding and that works for them, they can go with that. But it may not be a universal plan for everyone. Sugar is something that's being looked at now as an inflammatory agent, and we need more research on that. But that's the up-and-coming new topic, is sugar and the use of sugar. So we'll be on the lookout for that.
Okay, this is a follow-up. So what foods might create inflammation? We address that. Are there any foods you know that decrease inflammation?
That's another good question, and again, the research is not out there yet. The bottom line is your whole grains, your lean protein, your fresh fruits and vegetables, your deep dark colored fruits and vegetables, just a nice, well-rounded, balanced plan. Less convenience items and less processed items.
Okay. Are Triscuits considered whole wheat crackers?
Triscuits, I'm trying to, well, you want to see where it says whole grain. And whole grain means it has all the fragments of the grain. And you look at the fiber in your crackers as well. So if something is a nice fiber source, it's 3 grams of fiber or more, so that will help. And on the label, you look where it says whole wheat or whole grain.
All right, this is a 3-parter. Explain the value of fresh vegetables versus cooked versus dry. Nutrition and calories. Fresh versus cooked versus dry.
A lot of times when you cook your vegetables, they'll shrink, so the portion size may vary. When we have raw vegetables, the portion size is about a cup. Cooked vegetables is about a half a cup. You want to steam them or cook them in just a little bit of water to retain the nutritional value. You don't want to cook them down, because when you pour off the water, you'll see how the water is the color of the vegetable. Then you're getting rid of the nutritional value. But just quick cooking methods. And okay.
Were the calories any different?
The calories that doesn't change the calorie level. Mm-hmm.
Okay. This person asked for a review of meats that you might suggest.
Oh, the meats would be like your chicken breast, lean cuts of beef, a round cut of beef, or a loin cut of beef. Pork would be a pork tenderloin or a loin chop. And then your fish, any type of fish basically. Your salmon has a lot of the omega-3s, the mackerel, those type of items.
Okay, very good. And lastly, are there any alcohols that are better than others? Wine versus beer versus hard liquor?
They're all, I mean, it's all based on portion size. I mean, you don't want to drink 12 ounces of hard liquor. So, you know, it's 12 ounces of hard liquor, 4 to 5 ounces of wine, or an ounce of hard liquor. And the recommendations are 1 drink a day for a woman, 2 for a man.
All right. Have you heard of the Dr. Terry Wahls diet protocol?
I have heard of it, and I probably need to do a little bit more research on that, but it reminds me a lot of the Swank diet.
Anybody else have any questions? All right. Join me in thanking her.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. It's my pleasure.